Welcome to our Heme Consults orientation, video number 4. Today, I'm talking about day 1, maximize your leadership. Okay, when I first started in the Heme Consult service, I was fine. When the med students or the residents would call me, that was easy. But when the attendings called me, that felt really, really nerve wracking. I was afraid many times because I was like, oh my goodness, how can the attending be calling me? What do I know? I'm just starting the Heme Consult service for the very first day. And what I didn't recognize is that I could have owned my power. The reason people were calling me is because they didn't know. And no matter who they are, even if they are the attending, if they knew, they wouldn't be calling me. And that is one of the things I want to talk to you about today is that you are so important and your role is so important. And it doesn't matter who's calling you, you have something to give them. And that's why I want you to maximize your leadership building while you're on the Heme Consult service, because this service is about leading. It's about leading yourself and your experience. It's about leading physicians as they're taking care of their patients as well. So I'm going to talk to you about 7 ways to maximize your leadership on the consult service. Okay. The first thing I want you to do is recognize your qualifications. You are a highly qualified, highly skilled person coming into this role. Okay, you may not know a lot about hematology, granted, but there is a lot you know. You have a strong foundation and backbone of internal medicine. You were a rock star 3rd or maybe a 4th-year resident. You knew how to handle the hardest and most challenging patient scenarios. That person is still here. That person is you. And so, yes, you're going to add to that some hematology knowledge, but you got to acknowledge, first of all, what you already have. You're an attending in your own right, but instead of starting your practice or continuing your practice, for those of you who started and came back, you decided to come back and get more training. You're an attending, but you're here to get more training. And I want you to recognize that all the building blocks of leadership you already have, everything you need that's foundational in internal medicine, you already know. And so what you're doing is bringing your curiosity to build a new skill set on top of something you already have. Don't look at yourself as just a fellow. I don't even know what that means, but you're not just a fellow. You're an internal medicine attending who's taking some extra years to learn a new skill and to build a different kind of brand. So recognize the qualifications you already have. Okay, you have all these qualifications, but here you are because there's some skills that you're missing. But you do have good skills that are so essential to being great on the consult service. What are those skills? Well, your curiosity may be the most important skill that you have. You're a good medicine doc. You're going to ask good questions. And as you ask good questions, you're going to be like, I don't understand that. Could you explain this? And it's okay to ask whatever questions you have. Don't feel like, as the hematology consults fellow, I should already know this, therefore I can't ask it. Every question is fair game. The worst thing that will happen is the person to whom you're asking the question will say, you know what? I don't know. And then you just look it up. There is no question that is too much to stump you because it's probably already in the computer or your attending knows the answer. So define the skills you already have, which are really important: skills of listening, skills of curiosity, knowing where to go and find information that you don't already have. And then think about what are the skills gaps that you have. What are the gaps that you still need to build? So yes, a lot of that is hematology fund of knowledge, but then a lot of that is all the things that I talked about in terms of the leadership that you gain as a hematologist, learning to lead other physicians, learning to delegate, as we'll talk about in a future video. There are many skills that you're going to learn, and you want to make sure you understand the skills you already have and then the gap and the skills that you are trying to build. The next thing you want to think about in maximizing your leadership is to assemble your team. So yes, you are the Heme Consults Fellow. You're responsible for most of the Heme Consults, but you have a team surrounding you. You want to know who the members of your team are. For starters, you have pharmacists who are working with you. They will answer any questions about coagulation medications that you have no idea about. You're like, so if we're transitioning from heparin to Lovenox, when do we turn off the heparin drip and transition the patient to the Lovenox? Ask your friendly pharmacist. They'll be able to tell you. Or you're trying to figure out a patient with hemophilia A. You're like, I don't know the right starting dose. Your friendly pharmacist will be able to really help guide you and help you answer the right questions and help you see that you're asking and answering the questions correctly. So don't feel as if you need to do everything by yourself. For example, we have the sickle cell rounding team that will help manage patients who are stable from our perspective, who may not necessarily need the Heme Consult service, but still need to be followed daily. So you have a whole team of people who are helping you win. Maybe the coag lab, for example, if you want a sample run early, or they say, well, this PTT is outside the 4-hour window, and you know that you have 30 minutes or more, the sample could still be run. Give the lab a call and say, this is what I want. So recognize that you are not alone. I mean, I haven't even talked about the attending. Clearly, you and the attending are a team. But besides the attending, you have a whole team of people that's assembled to help you. You want to make sure you know who they are. The next thing you want to do is to negotiate your resources. What do I mean by that? You're like, negotiate? What am I negotiating? Okay. You know how you learn best. You know what kind of environment helps you shine. You know what's needed to really thrive and show up as the best kind of fellow you can be. You want to make sure you have access to those resources. I'm talking about things as simple as having breakfast every day, bringing your lunch in so you're not like, what am I going to eat in the middle of the day and it's so busy? Oh, I don't have time to go to the cafeteria, therefore I don't eat. Don't do that. Please have a plan for lunch. Lunch happens every day. Have a plan every day. Have a plan for your hydration. Have a plan for your fitness. Maybe fitness is something that you do. You hit your fitness goals before you come in the hospital. Have a plan. Make sure that you negotiate the resources that you need to help you win. Only you know what those resources are. They are not the same for every fellow. So figure them out, negotiate them. Maybe you need to do it with your significant other, whatever you need. Maybe you need help with laundry during this 4 weeks of busyness on the service. Maybe you need someone to help cover your pager when you are going for an appointment. Ask for what you need. The best way to get it is by asking. One other thing I want to tell you to do in maximizing your leadership is to clarify your highest contribution. This is really important. Sometimes people will say, hey, Hematology Consults fellow, we need a catheter. It's a 14 French catheter. We hear that it's stocked in apheresis. Don't take the bait and then start running all over the hospital trying to look for a catheter because it furthers patient care. It does further patient care. The question you need to ask is this my role? Is this the highest use of my expertise as a hematology consults fellow? And I hear some of you say, what expertise? I know nothing. Well, that is exactly the point, because the gap that you have in any given moment allows you to become more of the expert that you need to be. But guess what you're not doing when you're running around the hospital trying to find a catheter that the team can help find for themselves? You're not learning, you're not optimizing your knowledge and your skills as a hematology consultant. So that's what I'm talking about clarifying your highest contribution. Sometimes people say, hey, we want you to call Mariah Parham and speak to the receptionist and schedule an appointment for this patient to come next week. It's not the best and highest use of your time. Send an email to the relevant PRM who helps make appointments and make sure that they have all the information they need. Don't spend time on the phone listening to music playing when you could be doing something that advances and sharpens your skill as a hematology consultant. So that's what I mean. Clarify what is your highest contribution here and make sure you do that, because in general, you are the one person in the hospital that's answering questions as they come in. And if you are engaged doing other busy work, you're not able to do that well. So make sure that you're working in the space of your highest contribution. And to be honest, this goes for most of your life as well. Okay. One of the things I also recommend is to maximize your leadership, delegate early and often. Now, many times, because you don't see yourself as a leader, you're like, delegate? What can I delegate? There's so many things you can delegate. We've talked about that. You can spend time looking up the math for how to calculate the reticulocyte index, or you can just pull up a calculator and do that. You can spend a lot of time figuring out the math for how to figure out the dosing for factor 8. Or you could call the pharmacist and they'll tell you right away. So figure out how to delegate so that you are able to maximize your highest potential as a hematology consults fellow. Sometimes that's delegating to the teams. It's saying, check these iron studies. We think this patient will likely be iron deficient. And if the iron studies come back low, go ahead and supplement the patient. That's important delegation. You delegate to the teams. Or you could just follow the patient and make sure the labs come back, and then you see that they're iron deficient, and then you say, okay, now, and it's 2, 3 days later, and you're busy following up on labs that the team really could follow up on. Another example is the bone marrow biopsy. If you do a bone marrow biopsy, by the next day, usually there's a preliminary read from the hematopathologist. Follow up with the hematopathologist and get that preliminary read. Then you can sign out the rest of the report to the team. In 3 days, there'll be a final report in the chart. If there's anything that's different from what was a preliminary report from the pathologist, reach out to me again. So delegate early and often so that you're not left doing busy work that others really could do for themselves. Delegate early and often. The last thing I want you to think about as you're maximizing your leadership is to leave a good legacy. And you're like, legacy? I'm just on the Heme Consult service for 4 weeks. Well, one of the key roles that you play as a Heme Consults fellow is that people call you afraid. They have no idea what's going on. Their patients have necrosed a toe, they've necrosed an arm and a leg, and they have no idea what's going on. They're freaking out, and they call you. And instead of telling you that they're scared, they're yelling, they're kicking, they're screaming at you. It's really hard to function well under those circumstances. But you having compassion on them, naming for them the challenges and the frustrations they're feeling, allows you to create an environment where everybody can take a step back, calm down, and allow our creative brains rather than our lizard fight or flight brains to come to the fore. So consider how the culture that you create as a person who's answering the phone and on the other side is anxiety and fear and worry. Don't contribute your own anxiety. Learn to manage your own, and then don't take on the anxiety that comes at you over the phone. And if you can create a calm and peaceful learning environment for others, we'll all win. So I want to invite you to think about yourself as a leader of physicians caring for their own patients. And as you think about that, think about what kind of culture do you wish to create, even if other people seem resistant to that, even if there is a surgeon on the other line that's, mad or upset or something. How do you want to respond? What kind of culture do you want to lay down rather than be reactionary? Imagine what it would be like if each of us set an intention to use our values in our responses when people call us or do things that are not so pleasant. Imagine what kind of culture we would create if we started with us and created learning environments where people thrive. I think it would be pretty awesome. And I hope that you'll bring that to the Heme Consult service. I'll see you on the next video.